Edition of The Inside. I am Bablet Jonathan. Today, we are taking another turn in our series on education amid security tensions, amid a volatile security situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country as a result of the socio-political and security crisis raging over there in the two predominantly English-speaking regions of the country for over 8 years now, and some of the recent incidents recorded within the context of the crisis include the explosion of an improvised explosive device around the ENWE market in the northwest regional capital Bamenda, during which one person died and 6 others were injured according to official sources, and of course gunshots heard Thursday in the southwest regional capital Buea ahead of the projection of the documentary on the President of the Republic, Paul Biya. We are looking at all these and some issues in the news, notably the flooding, the heavy flooding in the far north region of the country, affecting over 4 divisions with hundreds of thousands of persons displaced and at least 11 persons who have died, according to official information. Stay with us and meet our first guest in some few seconds. Our first guest today is Honorable Senator ENWE Francis, member of Cameroon's upper house of parliament from the Momo division in the northwest region of the country. Senator ENWE Francis, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure being with you this day.
Right, let's begin in the far north region with the disturbing situation of flooding, heavy flooding, affecting over 4 divisions of that part of the country, with at least 200,000 persons who have been displaced, hundreds of thousands of farmlands destroyed, houses destroyed, and of course we are now counting 11 persons who have died in that natural disaster. What's your take on this?
Well, it's a pathetic situation. We feel worried, and knowing that this is rainy season, which in fact is affecting many parts of the world, with Cameroon not left out. The incident in the far north affecting many divisions and hundreds of thousands of people really in this very desperate situation. A call for concern to all Cameroonians, because it can happen anywhere. And I think this is not the first time this is happening in the far north region, which I do believe that something should be done, and done urgently, to prevent that from happening in the coming years, because we can't keep on every 2 or 3 years this flood in the north and the people are still in the same areas. They can be relocated, and in order to avoid incidents like this where people will be dying, hundreds of thousands of people homeless, cattle and farmland,
Thousands of hectares
of farmland destroyed. So we should start reflecting. If it means relocating the people, we should do that. And I want to thank the head of state, President Paul Biya, for the concern he has already shown to the people of the far north. He has always been doing that, with Madame Chantal Biya, for their humanitarian. That level of criminality should be taken seriously by the security forces. And the population of the northwest region should wake up and say, enough of this is enough. We can't stay, and our relations are dying every day in the region. By who?
Isn't this an indication that the problem is still there, despite all what has been done so far by the government, despite all everything under control speech that we hear every day? Isn't this an indication that the problem is still there?
Those guys are not talking again about the problem that started what started the crisis in 2016. They are not more for that. It's something else. It's banditry, and they just want to prove their presence by creating situations like this to put fear on the population.
And in the southwest regional chieftain Buea, on Thursday we heard gunshots prior to the projection of the documentary on the President of the Republic. The gunshots, a sign of rejection, a sign of saying, no, we don't want this.
And you who don't want this, a few guys carrying guns and being misguided to use those guns on their populations, on the people they claim to protect. I can't imagine. We don't understand. And talking of solving the problem, which problem are we talking of now?
The decades-old Anglophone problem.
We know, yes, there was an Anglophone
Not
problem.
just the crisis, because the crisis started in 2016, late
Crisis,
2016.
yes.
The Anglophone problem had been there.
It has been there. I think I said this even before 2016. I said that on the program Inside the Presidency in 2014, April, when I was being interviewed by Joseph AWAH on the program Inside the Presidency. And he just abruptly asked me, is there an Anglophone problem? And I say, yes. If many people are saying there is a problem, then there is a problem. And if there is a problem, we should look for a way to solve it, because there's no house without problems. 2014, April.
And here we are in 2020.
Here we are in 2016. The teachers started something. The lawyers came in, and it went to where it went. And today we find ourselves where we are. The people handling this now are not the people that started this. So, what problem do you want us to solve now? Okay, let's say some people said independence. If you declare independence today in the Northwest and Southwest, tomorrow morning somebody will still be kidnapped. An explosion will still come out somewhere. The guys will still be carrying guns and causing the atrocities they are causing. So, what should be done? They have made our populations to remain desperate, confused, and in total fear all the time. Many people have died just because of pressure and tension, fear, no access to hospital when they are ghost towns. Is that what Anglophone stood for?
No, about the situation, the gunshots heard in Buea, prior to the presentation or the projection of the documentary on the President of the Republic, there's a question that's coming up. What was the necessity of going to present that documentary in the town of Buea? Because somebody could have been killed in those gunshots because of the presentation. Remember, in 2017 or so, there was an event of your party, the CPDM, in Bamenda that turned sour, and that is where the escalation started.
Yeah, it is normal. We are talking of a state. We are talking of a country. The state mechanism, things cannot just stop abruptly because some guys are carrying guns and disturbing people left and right. And it doesn't mean that they are not reflecting on that. Everybody has reflected until we are called confused. If you ask me the solution to the problem, I don't know. And when we talk to most of these boys, I talk with many of them. Nobody is talking of what started this problem. Many of them, when you are talking one-on-one, they are talking of their personal problem. That is what is happening. So for now, I don't know which solution that can solve the problem. Because guns have entered into wrong hands. And you know the power of a gun. One of them told me the other day, where one guy was arrested, a bike rider was arrested somewhere, and the guy sent me an audio that they have arrested a guy from one village because he carried amber, and he asked me, if na you come to amber, we carry gun, tell you carry you go deny, and I laughed. You can understand what it means.
The dilemma.
Yeah. So, people, we are all confused on how to manage a crisis. And the only way is, let these guns come out of the wrong hands. And I think many are giving out these guns. Many have been resettled after DDR. Many have had jobs. Many who came out that were not very dangerous are settled in the cities. And their lives have come back to normal. They are interacting with their relations and everywhere. So why are the other ones still holding guns but targeting the population?
And also targeting...
The gunshot in Buea, you go and sit in a hill, far off hill somewhere, and shoot 3-4 gunshots there, and you say you have disturbed. It's just waste of time.
In the meantime, and in the midst of all these, children are practically victimized. Their education is somehow adversely affected or even hijacked, so to speak, for some of them who have not been to school for several years now because of the prevailing situation. Whereas we know, and everyone is expected to know, that education is a fundamental human right enshrined in national and international legal instruments, including the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, and many others that Cameroon has signed and ratified. But this right is being trampled upon in those two regions. And this has been going on for over 8 years now. This is the 8th academic year going on in the same situation.
Yeah, it's painful. I think everybody has been talking about this. The clergy, diplomats, everybody, the elite, politicians, they want the children to go to school. It is their fundamental right for the children to go to school. And we're shocked to see that even educated people who pass through the education in the Northwest and Southwest will stand and say their junior brothers should not go to school. We condemn that.
But is it enough? The Voice newspaper said the Minister of Secondary Education, Professor Nalova Leong, slams the what is called devilish no school message in the Northwest and Southwest. Is it enough to condemn? Shouldn't there be more action on the ground, on the part of government, in terms of solving the situation so the environment can be conducive for all the children to go to school?
To you, what do you think is the solution? Tell me, then we can follow up on that.
I'm the one asking questions here. That's why I'm asking you, because you're the senator of the Republic, and the people are looking up to you for solutions.
Listen,
for answers to their questions.
We have given all the solutions, and I think I, as an individual, have worked a lot on part of the solutions. And when we talk of solutions, you know, every area has its specificity. I can concentrate in my area, where I come from, and my impact cannot be felt in a place like Buea. I'm from Momo Division. I'm from Widikum precisely.
So what have you been doing on the ground?
My impact can be felt within Widikum, which will not be the same in another area. So it needs a joint move by everybody. You, the journalists, the politicians, the elite, the parents, the women, the youth. Everybody has to work for us to arrive at, in fact, a situation where the violence against children going to school, against teachers, should stop.
Tell us what you have been doing at your level in the Momo Division.
Since 2026, it's a long story. And I think, if you remember, there was a time I descended to Momo Division in the heart of the crisis, 2019 November, with a peace caravan. It was a delicate mission to ENWE. Thousands of people came out. And when I got there, the administration had prepared a high table up there and chairs down there. I told them I'm not sitting down anywhere. I want to talk to this population. And I had to carry a microphone around the market. And finally, everybody gathered in the center. Thousands of people. And I delivered the message to them. Message of peace. During that period, I called on the population. Tell me what you feel. Nobody should be afraid to talk here. Just say anything. Nobody will be threatened. And people pulled out what they had in them. I took that back. There on the during that, I had to give my number publicly. Say, all of you take my numbers. Give them to your sons and who are in this thing in the bush. Tell them to call me if they feel that they need some assistance to come out. I will bring them out safely. Many came out and complained that the children in the bushes, some are crying for, they don't have identity cards. I on the spot instructed the DO. Discussed with the DO and the security, the police. Said, what can we do in this situation? There and then the DO said, I will do this. Bring me the person, bring this information, we'll get an ID for the person. I will not tell you what happened after that. Many people called me. Many of them came out. Their IDs were made in ENWE. And they said, I've washed my hands from this thing and I'm gone. That early period. And after that, we have been talking to, when there's a challenge anywhere, I will say, give me the number of the guy. And I will talk. Some in the beginning, when you call them, they were, so arrogant. Wow. They will shout at you. But you don't shout at me. When you shout, I tell you what it means by shouting. Until we start talking and understanding. I will not tell you like there are some that if you call now, they say, Daddy, good afternoon. They are now understanding. And it's a gradual process. Tomorrow, 3, they will say, okay, I'm coming out. What do? You show a way. We have removed many like that. And I think I'll be proud to say Widikum Center has peace. But let me not announce like this, then they go out tomorrow to go and attack Widikum because they said there's peace in Widikum. Activities are going on quite well in Widikum. But yes, in the peripheries, the far-off villages, there are just guys that were torturing populations in the far-off villages. Doing what? Nothing. Just either they come and kill your goat, take it and go and eat, or they see a pig you are keeping. That's the life they are living. Harassing the population.
Somebody listening to you now, as you said, it was quite a risky mission for you. Would want to know how you managed to do that, how you managed to carry on with that mission, knowing the threat looming over most of you who are in either government or in the CPDM and so on. But you went through that and came back safely. We thank God for you, but tell us how you managed to do that.
No, it was, like I said, it was a very risky mission because that was the heart of, the violence. And I found myself in Bengue. And the next morning, I and the team that went, I think your collaborator was with us in Bengue. She was with us in Bengue. We slept in Bengue. And the next morning, they had to arrange some guys with the taxi from the park who came and carried us from the hotel where we were. And before they could call me from upstation that they are sending armor cars to come and take us in Bengue, I said, I'm already in Bamenda. We were moving with a lot of fear. We're expecting anything to happen to us on the way. And that mission was being championed by late Cardinal Tumi of blessed memory. The peace caravan that he organized and so on. And that's why I went there to represent him and to talk to the people of Momo Division.
Now, about education, what exactly have you been doing on the ground? We've seen some images here and there. What have you been doing to ensure that children go to school in the Momo Division?
Yeah, I started this when I was even a member of the National Assembly, where I would even go and motivate children with school books. And that time I even offered some scholarships to encourage children to go to school. But the rate of violence could not permit that happen. This time again, I decided to come out with textbooks, thousands of textbooks to all the classes. And I think this is the first time that quantity of textbooks are going to Widikum subdivision. And if you will see the images, thousands of pupils and students came out and collected textbooks to go back to school. Why? Because I know the importance of education. If I was not educated, I will never be a senator today. Never have been a senator today. If you were not educated, you would not have. So we all went through education. Even the leaders who started this thing and so on went through the same education, which today they will turn and say is useless. The best thing we should do is to encourage them, allow our children go to school. It is their right. And if they are talking of any right, human right and so on, it's the human rights that they are also going against for the children of the Northwest and Southwest. The disorder they have brought in our educational system. The Northwest and Southwest is to be the hub of education in this country. We have students from all the regions of this country attending schools in the Northwest and Southwest. We have students from neighboring countries attending schools in the Northwest and Southwest because of the value of our educational system. But today it is shattered by who? By ourselves. We have shattered our educational system. We have shattered our economy. We have shattered everything, and we are there hanging up and down as IDPs.
No. Those children who came out to receive the didactic material you brought for them, are they going to school now?
I'll not tell a lie that they're going to school. The same ghost town that stopped children from going to school. There's fear. And I can't impose on a child to go to school. There is fear for children going to school because they said ghost town. I'm very optimistic in the coming week. Schools will start and these children will go to school and study. I'm very optimistic, except something happens again to stop them from going to school. And I'm thinking that the teachers can go and teach, because if the ghost town is over, then people are free to go and teach.
All right, Senator ENWE Francis, former member of Cameroon's lower house of parliament and now member of the upper house of parliament. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all the insights and wisdom you shared with us today.
It's my pleasure, and maybe I've heard somebody in my presentation. In fact, I'm just angry with what is happening in our two regions, and I think I have the right to express my anger, and that's why I term it devilish. And people should start reasoning. People should start fearing God. And I think if we love peace, let's give peace a chance this time in our two regions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. In a moment, we'll be receiving our second guest. Thank you for staying with us. We are receiving Barrister Joseph AWAH FRU, member of the Cameroon Bar Association, one of the lawyers of detained Anglophone leaders Sisi Kuwayo Tabe and others, and all detainees of the Anglophone crisis. Barrister, welcome to the program.
Thank you so very much, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure to be home with you. And let me just seize this opportunity to thank you very, very much for the work that you do for our people. And by that I mean, you know, in a world where propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and false facts are being propelled everywhere, you come in as a calm refresher, you know, as an oasis in this desert. You come in as some very refreshing point of information in the country, and I think that's worth commendable, and I thank you for it.
Thank you very much. Let's begin with the human rights perspective of the floods, the natural disaster in the far north region of the country. We're talking about several rights that have been trampled upon. Correct. Because of that situation.
Correct.
The right to life. The 11 persons who have been deprived of this right, who have died. The 200,000, at least 200,000 others who have been displaced. We're talking about the right to shelter, the right to dignity, and many other rights that are being trampled upon in this context of the natural disaster. Tell us more about this side of the trouble that the children or the people of the far north region are facing.
You know, Jonathan, before I actually get into rights, which as a lawyer I must situate in the context of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was ratified in Paris on the 10th of December 1948. And of these rights, there are 30 of them, all right? The right of life is sacrosanct. That's the most important. And I'm sure that in our conversations today, I'll be coming back to that. But I cannot stress how important the right to life is. And these other rights that are espoused in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights are very important. None of them is less important than the other, okay? But let us put this in the context of understanding that for every right, there's an obligation. And that when you're talking about rights, whether they are on the international plane or on the national plane, there has to be somewhere where those rights come from, all right? So you don't just have rights in the vacuum. So the fundamental question here is, who has the obligation to provide these rights to those people? And here it's very simple. It's the state. Everywhere in the world, the state has the obligation, the sacrosanct obligation to provide protection, security, and welfare to its people. And so we can talk about the right to life, no discrimination, or the right to housing, the right to food,
the right to food, the right to shelter, the right to water.
All of those rights are attendant to the right or to the obligation that the state has to provide to these people.
Do you think the state of Cameroon has failed in this perspective.
Precisely. I mean, that is not, we're not even gainsaying that. We're not gainsaying that. You know, we're saying that, you remember that the floods, the floods have been here forever. Okay? If my memory serves me well, the floods were here in the far north in 2012. And in 2012, there were promises. All right? So it's not something that has just dawned on us like, you know, just fell from nowhere. Climate change is here, we know that. Environmental degradation is here, we know that. But as a state, one of the obligations is to foresee these things, is to prepare for those things, is to handle those things when they come about. So in 2012, what was promised? There were plans to build dikes. You know what I'm talking about. To contain the water so that it should not flood. 2022 came. That was 10 years after that. All right? 10 years is enough time to make all preparations and all accommodations for any unforeseens. 2022 came and went. Here we are, 12 years after that. And we are still talking about the problem. And what is madness defined again? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. We did not address the problem in 2012. The government did not address the problem up to 2022 when there was another flood, when there was another reminder. And today we are talking about the same problems. And then we are asking for what? God's intervention? And if it is God's intervention that we are asking, has it not been kind enough to the nation?
So if we were to talk about responsibilities here.
Correct.
We said the government has the responsibility to ensure the welfare, the well-being of the citizens.
Correct.
Of the country. Now, we have at the helm of the state, the President of the Republic, who made promises in 2012. And his words have not been executed. What was supposed to be done has not been done. So, who is responsible for this situation violating the rights of the people of 4 divisions of the Far North region?
You know, Jonathan, there are certain things that are above my pay grade, all right? But there are certain things that are within the scope of my competence as a lawyer. And that's what I'm going to talk about, all right? The Constitution is clear as to who is the head of the executive, correct? The Constitution gives not only the powers, but the latitude for the head of state to exercise his power. You know, the articles of the Constitution are very clear as to who has the powers to effect this. He has a cabinet, yes. He has a head of government, yes. All these are answerable to one person and only one person, and that's the head of the state.
In the recent situation, the current situation, he offered 350 million francs CFA for the flood victims, and some money has been disbursed, about close to 2 billion francs CFA for some rehabilitation works also. Is this an adequate response to the current situation on the ground?
You know, again,
bringing relief to the victims.
Again, I'll go back to this. Whether it's enough or not, that's above my pay grade. But I can analyze it the way it is, all right? And let me just say this. You know, emergency response to natural phenomena and to emergencies, it's not a question of aid. It's a question of planning. It's a question of management. It's a question of national interest. These are issues that go to the heart of governance. These are the issues that are governed by laws. There should be statutory requirements that make for these rainy days. It shouldn't be a gas issue. It shouldn't be a humanitarian issue. It shouldn't be a good-hearted thing for parliamentarians and senators to be thanking him about. No.
All right. We're going to go to the northwest and southwest regions of the country now, and we want to look at the unstable security situation over there. And before we do that, this is Interviews of the Week.
if these people call themselves microbes, let them know that we have the adequate vaccine to tackle them. And we are not going to sleep. The administration is not going to sleep. The forces of law and order will not sleep until the last of them will be destroyed from the egg. It is an opportunity for me to tell the bandits, to tell drug dealers, to tell those who consume drugs and misbehave that Douala 5 is not going to be a safe haven for them, that they better pack and go before we meet them. Because this operation that started is not something that is going to end today or tomorrow, continue to be law-abiding, to go about their activities normally. The hierarchy of the division, the hierarchy of the region are bent on doing everything so that these operations go to an end, so that that name, microbe, like I said, should cease to exist from the vocabulary of people.
There's no problem in this PCC. It's the social media that made us to believe that there's a problem. Those are normal things. They're all over, all the changes. From the college to any changes, all those problems, they're just the social media that made us today to believe that there's war in the church, there's fire burning. There's no fire burning in the church. There's some few people who want to express themselves, they disguise themselves. All those publications who has come out to say that I'm the person. Anybody can sit behind a computer and write whatever he write as a trash. And said that why none of them has signed any document, identify he who accept that, and the one written the document. Let me just talk like me, the chairman of PC Bonamosadi. One publication we made, and the person says that his address is PC Bonamosadi. I've contacted all the elders. We have scanned all over. There's no person in that congregation in that bearing that name. So it's just some person who has just sat anywhere in a computer and then just post any message, believing that that's the way to destabilize the church. You must know that Christ is the head of the church. If you touch the church, you have touched Christ, and you'll be accountable for that. But however, I know that there's no problem in Presbyterian Church. Presbyterian Church is one of the strongest churches you can trust in Cameroon, and all these things will come to pass after elections. Indirectly, I think that there are some people want to use that as a method of campaign. There are some people, maybe they aspire to certain positions, or they realize that the mechanism put in place may not qualify them. They want to use other indirect means to intimidate the church. The church will always remain firm. 99 or 100% are unfounded. Because I myself have carried my own independent investigation. Do you think the moderator, has he signed the document? You said that the moderator is not from Southwest. Where is that choir? Is that choir in the ground north? So those are trivialities that I don't believe that there are some people are disgruntled. And let me tell you, this is what the moderator has done. In the midst of an Anglophone crisis, 85 or more % of the budget of PCC come from Northwest and Southwest. But this is a man who has made the church to survive in the midst of those crises, coupled with COVID-19. But yet the church is still waxing strong. That is where you would have realized that the guy has done extraordinary things. Since independent, how many infrastructure Presbyterian Church carry out? But in the midst of this crisis, Presbyterian Church has most of the modern structure you have today, born out of this crisis. It tells that the guy has done extraordinary work that we should instead appreciate him. Let's appreciate and honor those leaders who have come in with great visions. So to me, it's not a problem. But after election, you discover that it's because of election that it is coming up that people think that they can use other tactics to maneuver and then are sent to certain position. Or some people realize that the criteria put in place has disqualified them, so they are so disgruntled. Because there are ways in the Presbyterian Church. If you think that you are disgruntled, you should cease. The moderator is not the moderator is not even a member of the Electoral Commission. Just know from that. You should now know that those people are disgruntled, or they don't even know what to do, or they have been disqualified by the electoral law. So you must know that there are some people who are out to destabilize. You must know that the church is one of the institutions that the devil fight. The devil use all tricks and manipulation to fight the church in order to destroy the church. So he can use any means. I will tell our Christians to believe in their church, reject such messages that come through social media, and believe in the leadership of the church, because all of us are the body of Christ. Do your own part, believe in your church, evangelize, discard all such information. Those are the handiworks of the devil.
The projection of the documentary on the President of the Republic in Buea this week, a projection that took place amid gunshots and an unstable security situation. What's your take on this projection in this context of insecurity in the town of Buea? Probably the town of Bamenda will be coming after that. But is it really necessary in this context?
I don't care if you call it a crisis. I don't care whether you call it a conflict. I don't care whether you call it a war. All right? People are dying. Explosives, improvised explosive devices are being detonated. All right? And deaths are on both sides. The military, the soldiers are dying. The separatists are dying. People are dying. We cannot be treating this as if something is not happening. You are going, what is the essence of this personality cult? To project a movie about somebody in the midst of a conflict or a war or a crisis, the way some of you call it.
President Paul Biya remains the head of state as of now, and isn't it right for the people to get to know more about the president? There are some, especially young people, who do not really know pretty much about the head of state.
Yes, sir.
Who do not know how he came to power, what he's been doing, and all of that. Isn't it an opportunity to learn?
So, Jonathan, did that movie take 40 years to be screened? How long did it take to screen that movie? Because the president has been in power for that long and more and counting, right? And so you're just going to come with a movie for a day or an hour or 30 minutes, whatever it was, and then suddenly people will learn about him. And what is it to be learned about him that is not known? That's the question. And you know what? We can say all of these things till the cows come home. We can have explanation and justifications for everything under the sun. But guess what? The bottom line is that people are dying, people are in prison, people are displaced, people are refugees because of the situation that is in the ground. This is the 800-pound gorilla that is staring us in the face. Why can't we address it? Why are we running away from our shadows? Why are we not facing the problem that the world wants us to face?
What's your analysis of the recent incidents that we've had in this week, notably the explosion of an improvised explosive device around the ENWE market, killing one person and injuring 6 others, according to official sources? What's your analysis of this incident, and then the gunshots that we heard in Buea, and even before that there were some other happenings of that nature in the 2 regions?
It's simple to me. My mind is a lawyerly mind, and so it works in compartments, all right? So if this was cross-examination, the question I will then ask is, so what do you call normalcy? That's the only question I'm going to ask the person understand. If all these things are happening, then what do you call normalcy? The second prong, the second issue to my analysis would be that, Jonathan, these people started with leaves on the streets, with peace plants on the streets, and then it degenerated to catapults. It degenerated to catapults, and then it went to pangas, it went to machetes, it went to spears, to den guns, and then to AKs. And today we're talking about improvised explosive devices.
And even rocket launchers today.
And rocket launchers. Thank you for coming in with that. To me, the journey of the sophistication of this war augurs for right-thinking people and analysts who, in their calm reasonableness, should call it what it is: a deterioration of the crisis, an aggravation of the war. I mean, why are we lying to ourselves? Who are we fooling here? Why are we running away from our shadows?
Should children be victimized in all of this? Should their education be taken hostage because of a prevailing situation?
I'm glad you ultimately got to that, Jonathan, because, you know, as a lawyer, there are many things, especially in the field of my practice and doing this now for quite some time. There are times that you see things and you have nightmares. There are situations that make me lose sleep. But this is not one of them, I'm sorry to say. Education, you know what? Remember those 30 rights, universal, those fundamental rights that I espoused in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? There are 30 of them. You know, the first is freedom and equality, and then goes to non-discrimination, and then the third, which is about life, liberty, and the security of the person. All right? Saying that life is the most important of those rights. All other rights are attendant and derivative of that. And when life is threatened, every other right has to take hold in order to get this right. All right? The right to education on that list is Article 26. It is not one of the first 10 or the first 5, the first 10, the first 15, or the first 20, or even the first 25.
Let me get what you're saying, barrister. Let me get you clearly.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying that the right to education is not very important?
Not at all. That's not what I said.
Are you saying that children should be
not at all.
kept in their homes?
And I'm grateful that you can give me a chance to clarify that. I'm saying that the right of education is attendant to the right to life. And the right to life and the security of the person is the right that is sacrosanct. And in a situation of war, in a situation of crisis, in a situation of conflict, that right of education cannot be jeopardized, or the right of life should not be jeopardized by an attendant right that is the right to education. Which means you can fail to be educated today, but you will be educated tomorrow.
You should be alive.
You should be alive to get to that point. My point, Jonathan, let us stop chasing shadows. Let's see if the government is willing and able. Let them fix the problem so people should go to school.
From that perspective,
yes, sir,
and considering the fact that we need to be alive to go to school.
Correct.
Dead children can't
go to school.
What would you say about the calls coming up from here and there from authorities, elite, asking parents to send their children to school in the midst of lockdown, in the midst of ghost town or whatever? And even some administrative authorities, like the governor of the Southwest region, saying terrorize the terrorists by denouncing them. Brave the fear, go to school, knowing fully well that going to school in the midst of lockdown or ghost town or whatever is very risky for the children.
Jonathan, I can say this loud and clear. To push children in the space where there is armed conflict is suicidal. And to do that is immoral, is illegal, it's criminal.
Let's wrap up with the detainees of the Anglophone crisis. We understand that there are thousands of them who are in detention today and who have been in detention for years. You are one of the lawyers defending them.
Yes, sir.
Tell us more about that.
How much time do you have? I meant that in a good way. I can say that I'm the lead lawyer for the prisoners of conscience. All right? Those are prisoners that have been taken because of the crisis and solely the crisis. And I call them political prisoners because every action that is keeping them where they are acts of omission and commission because of their thoughts, their political opinions, and their associations. These three rights are rights that are sacrosanct, whether under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights or whether under the African Charter, every other international document that has the people's rights enunciated. Freedom of thought, expression, association, and political opinion are sacrosanct. These are protected rights. So, whether you call them terrorists or you call them financiers of terrorism or whatever you call it, they fall under these four categories. What they think and how they think, who they associate with, and what their political opinion is, and what they want for themselves. Self-determination and self-realization, which, by the way, is one of the subsets of the pillars of the United Nations. Because of the four pillars of the United Nations, whether it is peace and security, whether it is sustainable development, whether it is human rights and humanitarian issues, and the rule of law, the whole concept of self-determination is an overriding and overshadowing factor in all of these things.
The leaders have been charged, judged, and condemned.
Correct.
And there are still others who have not gone through this judicial process.
Yes, and let me just say two important things here, procedurally and substantively, Jonathan. One, with the Naira 10 case, which is the famous case that everybody knows about, the case of Sisiko Ayoktabe and 9 others, all right? We are at the Supreme Court, and our application at the Supreme Court has been languishing there for 2 years and counting. We have not as much as received recognition of the fact that the filing has been received. And we have proof. And we've tendered it to all international fora who would listen. And the second thing to that is, Jonathan, I'm sure that this is something that's very fundamental that we just treat very lightly, and that you as the press are not putting enough light on it. The United Nations Human Rights Commission, the Working Group on Arbitrary Detentions, that's like the Supreme Court of Human Rights, all right? The Universal Supreme Court of Human Rights, made up of varied several international jurists and international judges and international lawyers, have adjudicated the case of the Naira 10 and many other cases, by the way. But the Naira 10 is very important because that's the case in the limelight. They've adjudicated this case and found Cameroon and Nigeria liable, all right, for the illegal, unconstitutional, unconscionable, and the arbitrary detention of these people. Okay, let's break that down. What that means is they went through the process to apply as petitioners to complain against this. It was reviewed, counter information was received, and then they came out with an opinion. That opinion, in other words, that is legalese to say a judgment, to say that Nigeria and Cameroon are both liable. When we say liable, that might not be it. They were wrong in kidnapping those people, abducting them where they were, and refouling them. Refouling is a legal word that means you cannot violate international law to take away people who were acclaimed refugees, and asylum seekers in a country of protection to bring them back to the situation that they were running away from. Besides, there's a fundamental human right of nationality. Read your Article 15 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And Article 2 is saying that every human being has the right to a change of nationality and should not be prevented from changing that nationality. These people were already away out of harm's way.
In a nutshell, what you're saying is that they should be released. Is that?
The opinion, it's not me saying that, Jonathan. It is a bench of international lawyers who have sat in Geneva and adjudicated this and asked two things of the governments of Nigeria and Cameroon. One, to release them immediately, and two, to compensate them for all the wrongs and their rights that were unconstitutionally, illegally, and unconscionably violated.
No, the arrest of persons continues in the northwest and southwest regions.
Correct.
Recently, 70 young persons were arrested in Bomaka.
Yes.
In
Buea.
In Buea.
Correct.
In the southwest region of the country. Now, they were arrested and kept for more than a week and later unreleased. But this
on bail
arrest and
after paying some money.
Detention after paying money.
Yes.
This arrest of people and then detaining them until the inhabitants of Bonakanda, voila,
Yes.
that's the locality. The inhabitants of Bonakanda had to take to the streets before the children were released. What do you say about that as a law?
The nightmare of every criminal lawyer is to find people who are arbitrarily arrested without following. There's something in law called due process. Due process means if you are going to arrest somebody, there's a procedure to follow. You need to establish probable cause. You need to establish, get an arrest warrant, and then arrest them properly, and then detain them for a given number of time, and then bring them before a judge or a magistrate. All these arbitrary arrests and extrajudicial killings and disappearances, if these are happening on a daily basis, we're not talking about the killings that we ascribe to the separatists. These are arrests that are happening or are taking place by the military, by a constituted authority, by a trained army that has a single command. They are arresting these people, and you turn around and say that it's normal? Well, 70 arrested. Show us the charge sheets. Tell the world why you arrested these people. I mean, how can you just keep them for this long and then they pay money? So if they do that, that's called bail, right? They're paying bail. When the separatists do that, that's called kidnap for ransom. What's the difference? I ask you, what's the difference? When you round up people, because 2 Sundays ago in Bamenda on Mancho Street, they rounded a whole neighborhood and 3 trucks, bonded them up to station. And then they were released after specific sums of money were doled out. Where is this money going to? For what reason and to who?
Anyway, the authorities have been saying this repeatedly, that the soldiers are professional in their duties and that they are there to protect the population and not to kill or do all kinds of criminal activities that have been ascribed to them. But in some cases, we have seen that the authorities actually accepted, like the Ngabo incident, which is still hanging till today. And so,
I was going to go to that, Jonathan, and to say, you know, it's okay to say these things, but the press should be holding their feet to the fire and asking them, Where are the checks and balances? We are the checks and balances. We are. The lawyers are the people to tell you if this procedure is right or wrong. And you don't have to hear it from me. You hear it from Amnesty International, you hear it from Human Rights Watch, you hear it from anybody who's making a report saying that these arrests, a greater bulk of them, I'm not saying all of them, a greater bulk of them are unfounded, they lack probable cause, and they do not follow due process. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Barrister Joseph AWAH FRU, member of Cameroon's Bar Association, or the Cameroon Bar Association, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the insights you've shared with us in this edition of the program.
Thank you so very much, Jonathan. And like I said in the beginning, it's always a pleasure to come home to Equinoxe. We know that it's a refreshing place to be able to elucidate some of those things and get to our people and to the valiant people I represent. It's always a pleasure to have the honor to speak on their behalf, and I hope that sooner or later, you know, they will get to a point where they can sit here and talk for themselves and talk to the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of the program. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, on YouTube, and you can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Goodbye.
In your jar of matinal, you'll find good homegrown cocoa, to which we have added sugar and milk for an exquisite taste. Made from cocoa, matinal is rich in nutrients like magnesium, which is good for the brain, potassium, which is good for the heart, and vitamins. A good ally for children's energy and intellectual